Hello and welcome to Some of My Friends Read Comics. We've got Chris.
Draw Doom like one of your French girls.
We've got Vince.
We deserve to be called the Sinister Six. Screw math.
I'm Kia. Welcome to the show. Some quotable lines in this book here. Today we are reading The Superior Foes of Spider-Man, which was a little short-lived series. Longer lived than it was intended series, but it was during the Superior Spider-Man era, which was, what year was this? 2013? Yes.
Yes, 2013, 2014.
And you really don't have to know what's going on with Spider-Man at this time, but this is just a book about some of the D-tier villains teaming up and following their lives for a little while, which I always enjoy. And of course, we're going to move on to Earth X number 6 afterwards. We're halfway through. Get there. Superior Foes of Spider-Man, written by Nick Spencer with art by Steve Lieber. Have we read anything by Nick Spencer at all?
No, because I don't generally like him as a writer. Like he wrote, like, what is it, the Secret Empire series? He took over Amazing Spider-Man right when I quit, but that wasn't so much his fault. It was just that Dan Slott's run ended and my reading monthly comics had kind of ended, so it seemed like a good jumping off point. Although he must love Boomerang, because Boomerang is Peter Parker's roommate in that Amazing Spider-Man run. And then he also did like a bad like Secret Avengers run that I didn't like. But I remember everybody saying like, "Oh man, his Superior Foes of Spider-Man is great." So I was like, "Well, I'll give the guy a chance at the very least." You know, it's like how we talk about like with Cullen Bunn and Harrow County. I didn't really like much of his Marvel stuff, but I love Harrow County, so. You know, give the guy a chance.
Mm-hmm. Chris, did you ever read anything of his?
Yeah, I read the stuff that Vince talked about. I think I talked to him off mic last episode about how he had an issue of Secret Avengers that I thought that if I gave out prizes would have been my worst comic the year it came out, which was I think 2011. So yeah, I would not have sought this out. And then he did a big Captain America event where he's like, I promise Captain America is not mind controlled. This is the real Captain America. And he's the head of Hydra. And then he was mind controlled. And then it was all a big mess. And this was like 2015, 2016. So everyone was like watching the Republican National Convention and they're like, why is Captain America doing this? Why do you think this is a good idea?
I think I read that. And some of his Sam Wilson Captain America, which was fairly forgettable. I think he was a werewolf.
That sounds very memorable, but
yeah, that wasn't. I'm sorry, don't know what to tell you. You would think, but there just wasn't enough werewolf in there.
And then right. Steve Lieber's like a journeyman artist. Looks like he did some Road to Perdition issues, and then just kind of has been around.
Yeah, no relation to Stan or Larry Lieber.
Right. Okay. So that's our team. Here we go.
There we go. Let's do it. So this series, we're reading the first 6. The first volume was called Band Back Together. And yeah, we're going to jump right into it. Boomerang is our narrator for the whole thing. He's the leader of this team. Kind of doing the typical, oh, nobody knows about Boomerang. Everyone cares about Spider-Man. You don't even know my real name. His name is Fred Myers.
Isn't that like like a supermarket or some shit?
Fred Myers?
It might be a regional supermarket.
Yeah,
it's possible. His origin story is that he was a baseball player who was like a big up-and-comer. He was incredible, but he took a bribe and he was banned from the league, got forced into supervillainry, got a shitty Boomerang costume, saved up to buy a better one. Go ahead.
They said that he only made 10 starts. I'm assuming he didn't come in as a reliever. Because it seemed like he got disgraced and had the way his stat line is 10 starts, 220 something strikeouts, which is meaning he's getting 20 plus strikeouts out of the 27 outs per game, which is, I think like 5 people have gotten 20 strikeouts in a game ever. So including Kerry Wood against the Astros in his rookie season. But like, I was like, that stat line seems fucking wrong. Just straight up the bat. Like, let's make it a little more plausible. I got very upset. Just give him 20 starts. I don't know. I was very upset about this.
Yeah,
A.
20 a game is that's like Randy Johnson on his best day level, where you're like, okay, so you're like the best, like most dominant
Well,
pitcher.
he was getting like 10 to 14, and people were like, "This guy's amazing."
Well, yeah, I mean, and Randy Johnson, I think, is one of the pitchers who's had a 20 strikeout game, but it's just like, it's really hard to do.
A, I don't know what any of those words you said just mean. B, this book is not worried about math, Vince. This was in your quote for the
that's
episode.
true. This is Sinister Six, who only has between 3 and 5 members. That's true.
It has, yes.
I do love, and this is sort of brought up, that it's like Boomerang is created. He shows up in Astonishing Tales or whatever, like a Hulk book, basically.
Yeah.
And then fights Iron Fist, and then becomes a Spider-Man villain. So like he's not introduced as like, who's Spider-Man gonna fight? He's literally like, I read his first Spider-Man appearance. He shows up for the first time, kills a enemy of the Kingpin's, and then is like, here I am, I'm the new Bullseye. Bullseye got beat up by Daredevil, remember? I'll be the new guy. And Kingpin's like, no, I actually don't like you, and I don't want you to work for me.
Yeah, Boomerang's. I think I looked up. It comes out like in 1966, and was in the whole part of the Secret Empire, which Secret Empire is the name of that Nick Spencer series where Captain America's wink wink, not Hydra. So he's there, and then he disappears for like 11, 12 years, and then comes back, and he's not Spider-Man until some era. Yeah.
I think the early 80s is when he fights Spider-Man for the first time, and it is like literally after the Frank Miller Daredevil stuff has happened, and he's like, I could be the new Bullseye. Basically, I could be your hitman, like #1 guy. And then he makes a bunch of baseball puns, and then Spider-Man beats him up and then saves him from being shot to death by the Kingpin's men. Which, it was funny because I'm like, yeah, this is the character that Nick Spencer wrote. Is like, this guy is such a hapless loser, but with these grand plans of like, I could be basically the Kingpin's right hand. Like, you really couldn't. You're kind of an idiot.
He's got delusions of grandeur, as we'll see later in this book. He's like, we could take over. We could be the lead mob family in New York. I'm like, just set your sights a little lower, man. You could get a sustainable income and just like knocking off these kind of things. You'd be very good at this, but you're too ambitious, man. You're taking too big of swings.
I think you're wrong, Vince, but we'll get to that.
I do like the baseball back history, though. I think that is that's a cool origin history. But apparently that's like his old origin, not just for this book. But I thought oh, that's nice.
That is pre-existing. He makes, in that Spectacular Spider-Man, he makes like 10 baseball puns. He makes too many.
So as we said, he's now the leader of this incarnation of the Sinister Six. There's 5 of them. They kind of suck. But he runs them all down. We've got Overdrive, who is the pretty boy driver. I've never heard of Overdrive before or seen him, and I'm not quite sure what his powers are based on this book. Do y'all know him?
No, but I didn't know. I didn't know Boomerang, to be fair, either. And so
okay. Beetle, I know Beetle, but I don't know this Beetle. She is described as a pretty girl thief, and she's new.
Because Beetle is, I think they say later, was a Thunderbolt.
Yes, Beetle did turn into one of the Thunderbolts. Yes, became Mach 3, and then later upgraded to Mach 4, then 5, then 6, and 7. We've got Speed Demon, who is kind of the asshole of the group. He used to be the Wizard from Squadron Supreme. And we have Shocker, who is probably the most well-known of this crew, but he's also a coward.
One of these days, we're going to have to read that 1972 Shocker comic. It was like the first, not origin Spider-Man book I read, and Shocker terrified me. I thought he was the scariest villain. And I think I may be the only person that thinks that Shocker is like a top-tier Spider-Man villain. That's scary, because I don't think that that's ever how he's been depicted, even in the book I read when I was 7.
Let's put it on the list for next Halloween.
I was gonna say,
we'll see. We'll find out.
I think that's true. I think you're the only one. Of course, my first experience with Shocker was in the cartoon where Spider-Man just screams his name over and over.
Yes, I remember this. But that's the crew here. And somehow he has ended up, Boomerang himself has ended up in prison after a tough night against Spider-Man, I guess. And 2 of the other guys, I guess it's Speed Demon and Shocker, are there talking to him, on a little phone thing at the jail. And he's trying to get them to feed his birds. They're just joking about name changes and all that. Um, Speed Demon and Shocker then go to some pet store to get the food that they need. And they're in trench coats over their costumes, and they kind of start talking to this little girl who's buying a dog. And Speed Demon tells her the story about his dog, and his name was Skippy, and he was the best dog in the world, but his mom sold him for drugs. And Shocker's like, dude, what are you doing, man? And Speed Demon goes, you should name your dog Skippy too. And the little girl says, no, this dog's name is Inspector. He goes, that's a stupid name for a dog. You're stupid. He goes, well, I'm the stupid guy that's robbing you right now. And he, throws off the thing. It's a very calm robbery. The owner says, keep your voice down. You're scaring the cats. They have a list of which pet food they need.
I like that panel. I think that's a pretty good gag because Speed Demon's like holding his gun around, and then Shocker's got and somehow Shocker has goofy eyes on his costume. I'm not sure how that works, but the art is good for it. He's like, we need, and he like reads his like special like Blanton's farm organic no mess bird seed. So I think that's a very good gag.
And on their way out, Speed Demon takes the dog as well. He's like, call me stupid, will you? Take your dog.
This does not turn into a pizza dog situation like from Hawkeye and Nightwing, because that's a missed opportunity.
The dog appears every now and then, but it's not a focus.
It's not a dog eating pizza that's what would catapult us to Eisner Awards. That's
just start.
I mean, is this the first time we mentioned the Hawkeye book? Because this came out a year later, and it's, I mean, like Matt Fraction and David Aja, right? Like they almost deserve credits. This is such a this wouldn't exist without that.
There are definitely some similarities in like the tone and a lot of there's a lot of similarities for sure. But it's also different enough, I think, especially just like the plotting and what they're going for. But
I mean, this is more of like a losers sort of take on things. But yeah, it's like this is I just don't think this book would exist without Hawkeye.
It's very, very, very in that vein. So then they head to Boomerang's apartment and they realize they forgot the keys. So Speed Demon has to run back for them. And it turns out the door was unlocked. But Hammerhead is in there. And, we didn't mention it. During the baseball stuff, Hammerhead was in the stands watching Boomerang as well. And apparently this bird suit that got delivered has drugs in it. But where's the rest of the drugs?
And maybe diamonds.
Oh, you're right. I think it's diamonds.
Yeah,
I wrote down drugs, but it was diamonds. I thought it was very thick rocks,
Which then recontextualizes the robbery, because even the guy being robbed knew that was where the handoff was supposed to be. He's like, guys,
it's a little unclear what happened here, because the Shocker ends up in the hospital as a result here, because I guess they didn't have all of the drugs, and presumably Hammerhead was mad.
Yeah,
I don't know.
This part really, I mean, I am trying to not be too looking at my reference material from, Marvel RPG or whatever, but because we find out who it actually was that did this to Shocker, and I'm like, how did he do that? Why didn't Shocker just beat him up? Why? I know Shocker's a loser, but he also has superpowers.
Right. So we do. We'll get to the spoiler here now, but it's not really Hammerhead. It is the Chameleon, who is kind of there's a weirder meta story here, but it is a little I just was very unclear on how Chameleon then ended up in jail as a result.
Yeah. So how did Chameleon end up in jail? Does Chameleon have super strength when he shapeshifts? Because in the past he just could shapeshift. Because famously, Mary Jane with a baseball bat knocked him out. So he doesn't have the strength of whoever he's impersonating.
I'm less worried about that just because we didn't see what happened. So maybe he was clever and just had a good weapon, got a lucky shot. Who knows?
Yeah, it just makes more sense if it is Hammerhead, but they're like, no, it's not. It's this shapeshifter guy who's also in jail somehow. And you're like,
this was my biggest problem with the book. Just this bit here of how did Chameleon get in prison? What is happening?
Yeah,
that's what it is.
He seems to come and go as he pleases.
And it's just
Yep.
like I'm like, this is a comedy book. I shouldn't take it seriously. But like the amount of crimes that people are talking about on prison phones, I'm like, shut up. Please shut up.
There's a lot of that.
This is Chris is our lawyer segment.
Yes. I'm like, please don't talk about the crimes you are planning to commit while you're in jail waiting on your bond.
It's good advice. Somebody write that down.
That's free legal advice from Chris. He didn't even
Yep,
charge for that.
Don't do that. You know, you can talk about it being bugged or whatever. It's like, yes, they record all of your calls. You're calling from a prison.
So Shocker is in a hospital bed, all beaten up. Speed Demon's on the phone with Boomerang afterwards, saying, you know, hey, I couldn't really fill you all in on the details here, but this is part of a bigger job, which kind of gets them excited. And they're like, oh, okay, there's a bigger job here. Then we see Beetle and Overdrive trying to rob a record store. Right now, they're just trying to get enough money to get Boomerang's bail. Beetle is not great at it. She's not quite sure how to rob the guys, and they're like, well, yeah, what do y'all want? We've got some, like, you know, first edition prints of stuff.
It's a comic book store, isn't it?
Yeah,
I thought it was a record store. Oh, it was a
because
comic
they talk
book
about
store?
like variants a little later.
Yeah.
Records have variants, don't they?
But yeah, it's a comic book store, I'm pretty sure.
Hold on, now I gotta.
That's-
In mind, I maybe just didn't even look closely at it because something just made me go, oh yeah, it's a record store, duh. And see, like, all those things on the wall look like records to me.
They do.
But you're right. I see the figures. They're
Yeah,
they got statues. Unless that's like a Freddie Mercury statue. It's hard to say. So let's keep going here.
it's supposed to be
we're
them.
pat-
Let's make fun of the comic book store experience.
Yeah.
That's the gag.
It's so confusing. What's valuable? Because, yeah, he's just like, I think this thing is valuable, but it sucks. Like the time I sold Kick-Ass #1 for a huge profit on eBay.
I still need to do
He
that.
does even ask for
a-
bags and boards, and I
a-
thought, like,
A
maybe
book
records.
I thought sucked, but I sold it for like $40.
Nice. I still need to sell mine. I'm sure it's not worth nearly as much as it was 10 years ago.
This was right when the movie came out,
Mhm.
so I cashed out at the right time because I was like, this book stinks. I'm getting rid of it.
Hey, speaking of which, we're not doing that next episode.
So then we get Boomerang goes to the prison to talk to Chameleon about all this business, and he's like, hey, there is no job or whatever. Again, this was all part of the initial confusion of stuff. It gets somewhat cleared up later, but he says, hey, can I get my fake diamonds back, Boomerang? This was all part of some plan just to, like, get his crew on the team with him and kind of get them excited about whatever this job is that he's kind of making up. And there's two middle fingers in this book. He flashes a middle finger at Chameleon. There was a middle finger a few pages back, too, that was covered with a censored bar, but this one is covered with the Comics Code stamp. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the difference between these two middle fingers is, but one of them.
Which Hawkeye did those bits too. So I'm just like, okay, this is like literally just the exact same bit that Hawkeye did, where he was like coming out of the shower or whatever, and then leaps across, and they have the Comics Code covering his dick.
Oh, yes.
So it's just like, yeah, it's funny, but it's also like literally the same bit.
Well, it also, you didn't need two of the same bit in the same comic, practically back to back, you know?
Yeah.
But he has essentially tricked his gang into bailing him out so that they can do this big job together.
Because he
doesn't
owes
have a
Chameleon
job.
money.
He owes
Yeah.
Chameleon money, yes. And he's at least out of prison, even though he doesn't actually have a job to give them. But Chameleon's out of prison too. Uh-oh, and shows up and punches him.
That wasn't Chameleon. That was the guy he taunted that like made a throat slash and sign at him, and he was like, I am not making friends in here.
Oh, I see.
So that guy got
so
out of
just
prison
a random
too?
guy punched him. That guy got out of prison
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
And then
A lot of
immediately assaults the Boomerang.
Yeah.
He should press charges on that guy, get him back in there. Just
Move
kidding.
him, yeah.
He shouldn't snitch.
People do move in and out of prison very quickly in this book.
It's true.
All right, on to issue number 2 here. First one didn't have me too excited, but keep going.
I will
Superior-
admit for a new book with Spider-Man on the title, Spider-Man is only like in flashbacks. He doesn't really figure into the plot. I'm surprised.
I'm very happy about that. I don't think this
I'm
book
actually
needed
liking
Spider-Man.
it. Well,
Yeah.
because the status quo right now is that Spider-Man's possessed by Doc Ock. So I assumed that this book was them gonna go fight Dr. Octopus Spider-Man. That's never gonna come
Yeah.
into play. Don't worry
Would
about
have been fun, but yeah, my one complaint, I guess, through the whole book is a little bit too much Boomerang, a little bit not enough of everyone else.
Right.
Because I think Speed Demon is kind of the MVP of this first issue with the dog scene, and then the scene where they are when they're trying to get into his Boomerang's apartment, and Shocker's like, "Can you just go like get the keys?" And he's like, "All the way over there."
Well, hold on now. You can't just. This is by like 100% a Boomerang book, I would say.
Yes.
And it didn't bother me because I think I realized it pretty quickly in the first
Yeah.
issue. And I was like, I'm fine with that. And like have another team there as like side characters, but Boomerang is the definitive star. Except nobody's gonna buy a book called Boomerang. You have to call it Superior Foes of
But
Spider-Man.
I just think it's the team. The team is interesting enough that we should. I mean, like Overdrive in this.
It's
first
nothing.
6
He does
issues,
nothing.
What are his powers? Who
He
is
does
he?
nothing.
I know nothing except he likes
Luke Cage.
superheroes.
Yeah. But we'll see more of everybody. We'll talk more about them as we go here. But opening on issue number 2, Boomerang is talking about how much Punisher sucks. He's the worst superhero. Other superheroes will beat you up a little bit, but if you run into Punisher, you're fucking dead. But he's like, actually, no, that's not the worst thing. Worst thing about being a supervillain is meetings. I hate meetings. And he's meeting with the Sinister Six. They have voted on keeping the bathroom unisex. And Beetle really wants to get a 6th member because people are going to be confused that there's not a 6th person. But Boomerang likes the air of mystery. And he's like, it's on purpose. We don't want a 6th member because then they're like, oh, I wonder who the 6th member is. Maybe it's Dormammu. They're like, always Dormammu with this guy.
Yeah, this is like when Warlock and the Infinity Watch had one missing member, and you're like, who is it? Is it Thanos? And then it was Thanos.
Not like how the Big 12 rarely has 12 members.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's a sports joke.
Yeah, the Big Ten's logo had an invisible 11 in the negative space because there was 11 members for a long time.
Interesting.
Don't get locked into numbers with a name. It seems.
Yeah. It's a good idea not to.
That's why this podcast is not called 3 of My Friends Read Comics.
Ooh.
Exactly. What if one of us went to prison?
What if we acquired another friend? We don't have to rebrand. Like
that's true.
Ooh, Sinister Friends Read Comics. Okay. But then Boomerang says, wait a minute, no, that's not my least favorite thing. My real least favorite thing is dealing with lawyers. And then we get this Partridge character who is Boomerang's lawyer, who is, I don't know. He's my least favorite part of the book, probably overall. He's fun, whatever. He's kind of an asshole, like fun for that reason, just the jokes about people being an asshole. But he doesn't have much of an impact on the book. He's very much just like a kind of a side thing.
Yeah, it's pretty lazy, and it's also like I don't expect everyone to know like that much about criminal law, but like Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, I feel like did teach people like what these lawyers are like, and he's not like that, and so it's just like you could probably do a second pass on these jokes probably.
Yeah. And
which
Boomerang,
they make Breaking Bad references later, so it's like I know you're watching this show, Nick Spencer.
So Boomerang,
not every lawyer has like an arcade cabinet and a Dukes of Hazzard poster in their office.
Probably not. I don't know. They might.
I thought this guy was going to
Boomerang-
like factor in more like as like an extra like villain front, and that doesn't seem to be the case.
Well, the book
he
keeps
should
going.
have, and
Maybe
it should have been like that. Like he tries to get like Matt Murdock or someone good, and they're like, well, you can't get him, and then he just ends up with like a really like haggard, again like Better Call Saul or Bill Murray in Wild Things, where he has he's in the mini mall. Like that's who he should have as a lawyer, not this like, oh, he's like so like fancy, but he's also like inappropriate. I was just like, this is too much time. Again, we don't know who Overdrive is, but we know this damn lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And yeah, it's really just a vehicle to kind of get him to his parole hearing because his lawyer's going to get the charges dropped, but he did violate his parole. They don't actually say how. That would have been nice. But he can't do anything about that part, so they have to go to a parole hearing. But
I mean, presumably by whatever it is that he got arrested for from Spider-Man beating him up.
I guess that makes sense, yeah. But his crew has a job to do. They have to bust up some fancy new restaurant. They were hired by, I guess, the place across the street that's going out of business because the new restaurant's better. And they kind of take advantage of the restaurant, and they've taken it over, and they order a ton of food. They're drinking fancy wine.
Yeah,
Speed Demon.
the crime here confused me. I was like, what are they doing exactly? They're just hanging out?
They said they're busting the place up so that it has to close for a few weeks, and that's enough to kill their momentum and kill the buzz of the restaurant.
I guess, but it was weird to me that they're just like hanging out in the
yeah.
restaurant and ordering food. I'm like, why are you doing this?
Yep. But Speed Demon says his steak is not medium, and he sends it back. And the waitress apologizes because the crew broke the chef's arm, so they're a little understaffed, and they don't want excuses. What else happens here? Overdrive is the lookout, and it seems that so Speed Demon's also a very inappropriate character, which is why I was okay with not featuring him that much. But this book does have a little bit too much of just like, hey, isn't this guy a stupid male asshole, you know? And it happens a few times across different characters with that kind of humor, which is, you know, it did overdo it a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a weird vibe. It's like it doesn't land right for me.
It's the kind of thing where I think each individual time it did land right for me, but then collectively it's like, I don't know, that's too much.
Yeah, I feel like in the first issue, like every time somebody had a weird costume, somebody was like, "Is this a sex thing?"
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah,
there's a lot of that.
Yeah, and it would be, I guess, the humor of, I think Speed Demon has funny bits, but yeah, whenever they give him the like frat bro stuff, it's like that should probably be Boomerang's thing. You shouldn't be both of them.
Yeah,
I mean, and luckily from the writer's perspective, at least, Beetle shuts it down sometimes.
Right, it is always meant to be clearly like inappropriate and wrong. You know, it's never like glorified or anything.
Yeah. But it is just, it's kind of the lazy humor fallback. But yeah, I forget which particular thing we're talking about that Speed Demon did here.
Oh, he offered to make a sex tape with Beetle so that her career could grow.
Oh yeah, that was probably one of the clunkiest.
That was
jokes.
The worst one. That was I did say they all worked for me individually. This one didn't. You're right. I lied.
That one didn't land right in 2013.
Yep.
Yeah. Just okay.
So, anyways, they go out to kind of check on Overdrive, who's the lookout. And again, there's a big reason Overdrive doesn't get to do anything. He's always the lookout. And he's
like a car guy or something. Like, what are his powers?
Well,
he's a baby driver.
He was a Dan Slott creation, right? What does he do?
He does display something later, so we'll save it. I didn't know until then, so the listener won't know until then. Okay. So we've got Boomerang. Oh, all right. So he's not out there anymore because the Punisher has showed up and Overdrive has booked it. And Speed Demon is like, oh shit, and I think it just gets knocked out or whatever. And it's we find out it's Chameleon again. He's got Boomerang on the ground, gun to his head as Punisher, and he's like, hey, what are your final words? He's like, I don't want to die with a boomerang on my head. And he transforms. He's like, it's just me, ha ha ha. Don't forget my job. What are you doing these other jobs for? And he goes, well, I need to do these other jobs to make money to pay my crew, so they'll do your job.
I was like, I don't care. Okay. That's not part of my logistics. I don't give a shit. Yep. I care about my money. I don't care about your camaraderie.
I got no time. So then afterward, then it says Boomerang still owes him the job he asked for. He wants the head of Silvio Silvermane. Okay, learn more about that. So afterwards, Boomerang is bragging to his crew about surviving this encounter with the Punisher, because they don't know that it was Chameleon, and they all have respect for him all of a sudden. And he's like, no, guys, I let you all down. We should be doing big jobs instead of this little thing. We're going to go after the head of Silvio Silvermane. And Shocker, he's getting a drink. He's kind of acting a little weird around this whole thing, and we see that it's because he saw this exchange with the Chameleon, so he kind of knows it's not true.
I like how that's told. I like that.
Yeah.
I think nice. That's well told.
Then Boomerang is at his parole hearing. Sometimes I wrote Fred in my notes, so remember his name's Fred if I ever say Fred. And he gives a giant story about how he's learning from his mistakes, blah blah blah, trying stuff. It's too long. But the parole board is like, okay, we're gonna look past your parole violation. But we are gonna introduce this new parole officer as part of a new program we've got where we're gonna try to reform some supervillains. And they bring in Boomerang's old partner, the original Beetle, Abner Jenkins, who is now Mock 7. And let me tell you, if I was on the fence about this book, this is when I turned around. I'm a big Mach 7 fan. Not even joking. I mean, not individually, but I'm a big Thunderbolts fan. And I was like, oh, yeah, I love me some Thunderbolts.
We really need to read those original Thunderbolts. We need to get to that.
I love it. And I think this is when this book really started to give me more Thunderbolts vibes, which I was very excited about.
Yeah, I do appreciate Boomerang being like, I hate this guy. He's on the Thunderbolts. I mean, I was on the Thunderbolts too, but
it was a different
under duress.
yeah. So issue number 3, we start with a little bit of history of Silvio Manfredi, aka Silvio Silvermane. He was a New York gangster born in Italy, head of the Magia family, the crime family at one point. Who the first thing my brain went to was the Batman crime family, but that's not correct. Which ones are the Magia family? They're the ones who killed Punisher's family?
I mean, they were called that because in the 60s you weren't allowed to say mafia.
For real?
So, yes, that's literally, they show up and they fight like the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man and stuff like that, and you couldn't say mafia because it was New York in the 60s.
Wow, so you just say Magia. Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah,
it was went one letter down on the alphabet. Okay.
Yeah, so he is a Silver Age Spider-Man villain that was like literally after, like when Green Goblin's showing up and stuff like that. He's a character. So
yeah, because they're always in like Kingpin gang wars. I feel like in like Daredevil. I feel like and Punisher.
Yeah, well, I mean, Spider-Man was in the Silver Age. Daredevil was doing even stupider things in the Silver Age. Fighting ghosts and shit like that. Matadors.
Oh yeah, I remember that one. So this mob boss, he was big time, leading the family, starting to grow old, trying to maintain his life, trying anti-aging serum. Eventually got himself a robot body, but then the owl took him out. And the real Hammerhead was Silvermane's right-hand man at the time. I don't know why that's important. They just mentioned it. Then Silvermane's robot body was thrown in a trash compactor with those big metal things with some lot. And rumor has it the head of Silvermane popped off and flew away somewhere. All the life support systems in his robot were in the skull, so he could survive for years to come.
And so this is all told on this is criminal rumors and hearsay. That we all tell each other these stories. Nobody knows that this is true. And so it's allowed to be a little fantastical and a little stretched the truth. Mm-hmm. And the art supports that too. I really like this sequence. I think this is a really, really fun sequence.
Yes. He's talking about if that head is still out there, then whoever has it is going to be head of the Magia family because that head is the head of the family. And he's like, one of the rumors that, some of my partners believe in is that the scrapyard owner's son found it and used that head to build because he wanted to build a robot body, and a bond eventually formed between him and the kid, and they became friends. And Silvermane taught this kid and his mom how to stand up to thugs, and this kid built a cool RC car that his robot head could attach to, and they lived happily ever after on a beach watching a sunset. And then,
the art's great. The art's fucking
beautiful.
Great. I love it.
Beautiful.
It's very fun.
And Boomerang says, "Hopefully now you see how stupid the people I work with are," which that was a great line. He says he knows the true story. The true story is that the owl found it, and he keeps it in a hidden secret location where he tortures it forever. At one point, Boomerang was one of the owl's most trusted lieutenants. And they
don't do background checks.
Saw it because they don't do back. He's like, how did I get to be a trusted lieutenant? But he saw it. And so that's where the plan comes from. But now Boomerang is having breakfast with Abe Jenkins, Mach 7, at a diner. Fred isn't really excited about this, but Abe is. Abe is super gung-ho about trying to make a difference. He considers them friends. They were in the Sinister Syndicate together. But back when Mach 7 was the Beetle, he did double-cross Boomerang more than twice. And then he joined the Thunderbolts, and he screwed up and actually became a good guy. And Boomerang considers him a backstabbing turncoat. So they are walking along. Some girls on the street. They don't
mention he also had his race chemically changed.
His race. That is the worst part of Thunderbolts. It is so bizarre that he's He's just, I'm black now. Okay. All right. It's very bizarre.
They're like, you have to live as a black man forever now, Beetle.
Yeah. Very strange. I don't think we'll read that far when we read the Thunderbolts. They're walking, and some fans want to pick with Mach 7. Fred jabs at him that he never made the Avengers team. But Abe's like, hey, I want to introduce you to some people who might understand what's going on with you. And he says, Fred, I know Fred can be a hero too. I've seen it. And he's narrating. He's like, yeah, it's true. I was in the Thunderbolts too, but it was the government program. It was different goals, very different.
Yeah,
I think it's when like
Norman
Luke
Osborn was running it. Or
was
whatever.
it that one, or was it when Luke Cage was running the Thunderbolts? It's like reformed criminals. Like,
No, this is when Norman Osborn was running it. Luke Cage did it after that, which I think is the callback for what's maybe it was before. I don't remember.
Because there was the Warren Ellis run, and like Bullseye was
Yeah,
in the team.
Yeah, that was the Civil War era.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Radioactive Man, I remember being there.
And Venom. It was Scorpion Venom.
Yeah.
Anyways, Fred then goes back to the crew, to the Sinister Six, to talk about how he's got to go to this support group thing. Beetle is talking about how they don't need distractions going after this head. They should go without him. Boomerang's like, well, you can't. I'm the one who knows where it is. I'm like, well, you made this map. And he's like, yeah, but even on the map, y'all don't know where it is. Well, is it the spot you marked with a big X? He's like, no. It's the good gag. But it seems that they've ousted him as leader at this point. It happened a little quick, and I kind of missed it, like actually going down. But yeah, they said he's out of the group. It's just the four of them now. So Boomerang goes to the support group, sort of a Supervillains Anonymous thing.
He actually goes to the bar to see his bartender that he loves one time.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
That we, I was like, I don't remember him ever talking about this bartender, but what the fuck? It's in this one panel.
It's his
which
favorite
we'll talk about
bartender.
later.
Yeah. So at Supervillains Anonymous, he does not want to be there. He snatches a coffee out of some hippo guy's hand, and he spikes his own coffee. At Supervillains Anonymous, we got a story from a supervillain named Mirage. I don't know that I've ever read him in anything. But his name is...
he fought Amazing. He was in one issue of Amazing Spider-Man I read in like the 70s, and then I guess he died.
Several times.
His story's kind of interesting. So his story, he's up there talking to the whole crew, the group, and he says, started when Fin Fang Foom was attacking the city, and Iron Man saved his girlfriend, and it then just killed his girlfriend's interest in him. Because it was just like he wouldn't compare to Iron Man. He knew it was over when she asked him to wear a helmet in bed. So he became a supervillain. But it wasn't great. And yeah, nothing really stuck. And then he died in some big like explosion event thing. People remember that Captain America swiped his costume to trick some villain. And that's his 15 minutes of fame. And it wasn't even him. And he couldn't even stay dead right because the Hood brought him back to life along with some other folks to help take out the Punisher. But then he realized he was alive and he was going to make the most of it. And he got shot in the head 3 hours later. And then he woke up from a coma after a few months, had another big chance, but it doesn't matter. Nobody knows I'm alive. It's like nobody even cares. And they have a big group hug. The hippo says, "Come here, Fred, get in on this." And Fred is reminded of Fight Club.
Yeah, they just say what the reference that they're doing is. Like, okay.
It didn't have to be said, but he's.
Is that Meatloaf?
Yes, yep. Meatloaf. R.I.P. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He'll do anything for love, but he won't do that.
Yep. So afterwards, after this whole support group, he's talking to Mach 7. He's like, you know what? I think I do want to go clean, but I got to be honest with you. I was offered this job, and I turned it down. It seemed wrong, but like I feel like I should tell you about it. And he's like, oh, Mach 7's like, oh my God, I'm going right now. And he's like, no. If you go, then they'll know that I'm a snitch. You know, you should call the Avengers or something. And he's like, oh, I know who to call. And we see Luke Cage and Iron Fist bust in on the Sinister Six back at the hideout. And we realize that Boomerang has completely played Mach 7 and he's using him to his advantage.
We'll find that out next issue.
Well, yeah. You could tell by how happy it's like I didn't believe Boomerang for a second, you know.
Yeah, I mean, So spoiler alert, what he's going to do is he's going to use this as an opportunity to then rescue the team so he can get back on the team.
Yes.
I thought he was just using Mach 7 and then Luke Cage and Iron Fist to just like punish his old team. But
that is what I thought, yes. That he was just punishing his old team and getting back at them, but yeah.
But he's going to rescue them and ingratiate himself within them.
So we see kind of the crew and what they were doing right before this. I kept reading the crew everywhere instead of the Sinister Six, but that's what they are. They're kind of arguing about putting Beetle in charge. Speed Demon doesn't remember voting for that, but they showed a little flashback of them voting, and Speed Demon was just like, yeah, she's so hot. Then Shocker tries to tell them about the whole Chameleon Punisher thing, and that's when Luke Cage and Iron Fist show up to interrupt it. And Boomerang's narrating that they're heroes for hire, but he got them for free. Yeah. And they know they're after the Sinister Six, but there's only 4 of them, so they're on guard. Where are the other 2? And Speed Demon's like, oh, I knew that would work. Overdrive is fangirling out over Luke Cage, and he gets taken out immediately by a steel chair. Nice little fight scene, but of course, Luke Cage and Iron Fist win. They call for cleanup, and this is when Luke Cage sees a little Thunderbolts emblem on Shocker, and he's like, this isn't yours anymore, and he takes it.
Because Luke Cage was running the Thunderbolts around this time, maybe.
I guess it must have been around this time, maybe, yeah. Or even if it wouldn't have been this time, I could still see Luke Cage being like, that's not you anymore.
Yeah. I love the design with Iron Fist in that gray suit, by the way. I think
that's
it's a really nice design.
Yeah. You should always wear that suit. So then Fred is talking to Chameleon in prison again. Again, I don't know how he got back in prison because he was out as the Punisher for a second, right?
Are there 2 chameleons?
There might be.
Is he just like leaving during the day and coming back for like a free meal or something?
He did say during the first prison sequence, like, hey, busting out of here is not hard. I can do it whenever I want. It's just I don't always want to. I gotta have a reason. So maybe he presumably does just come and go as he pleases.
Sure.
Why?
So then,
why though? It raises like he must because he doesn't know. Because have you seen these rent prices in New York?
Well, maybe he knows they'll come after him if they see that he's gone for like an extended period of time. So he kind of knows how he can get around things, leave some sort of double in there, steal someone's body for a minute.
Is he like my fucking spiders or pets that I'm like, where the fuck did they go? They're probably hiding. Like, what is he like? Like when you look at like your pet container, like you got something, you're like, I just put out my spiders. Y'all don't know I have spiders. I have pet spiders. Sometimes I don't see them in their pen. And is that what they're looking like? I bet Chameleon's still in there. He's just hiding.
Correct.
Is that
I would say that yes.
He is the Chameleon.
In the book Superior Foes of Spider-Man, the most spider-like character is Chameleon. Yes.
Nailed it.
Sorry, were you saying something, Chris?
Yeah, he's a chameleon. He could just be against a wall or something, and they don't want to go check.
Yes. Does he ever do that? Does he ever shapeshift into like a brick wall or something?
He could, right? I mean, I don't see why not.
I thought he had makeup powers, and then in the cartoon, he like pushed a button on his belt and could like light project whoever he looked like or something.
I think he can shapeshift now, but I don't know.
My memory from the cartoons is that he had a little belt thing, which is really just a camera where he would take a picture of the person, and then he would take it to his makeup chair to look like them.
No, he like holographically.
Is that not correct?
Yeah, well, at least in when we say the cartoon, I mean 1994 cartoon. I think we all do. But yeah, and then like I really like in this book where he's like, that person doesn't have that voice anymore, and it's like, oh okay, like Hammerhead doesn't talk with an Italian accent anymore. Oh okay, cool. So that's how he knew he was Chameleon. I think that's a funny touch because chameleons have an act as opposed to just like embodying them somehow with like magic. But
yeah, he's just doing his bit. Again, that's what confused me about how did he kick Shocker's ass so easily. I'm like, Chameleon is not that tough. He's kind of like Craven's lackey generally. So why is he considered like a heavy hitter here? But it's because they're all losers, I guess. But anyway, So
they're talking in prison. Chameleon says, "I want a head in 24 hours. It's either going to be Silvio's or it's going to be yours." So Fred goes to the bar to drink a little bit, but he sees a new bartender there. He's very awkward about it because the last bartender had a thing, and this bartender has those things. He's talking about tits. It's a lady. And she's a big baseball fan who knows exactly who Fred is, and like runs down a bunch of his stats. And he calls her a Mets fan. And she's like, "Ew, no, I'm from Philly." Then he insults Philly and gets kicked out of the bar. He did not make a good first impression here. Then the Sinister Six, or the four of them, are in the back of a police van here. Shocker is kind of having a change of heart. He's like, we shouldn't have sold out Fred. Even though he's the one who knows that, it was really the chameleon back there. But he's talking right as Boomerang shows up and blows up the back of the vehicle, busts them all out. He's the hero. And he says, I'm in charge now. No more democracy. We're going to go hit the owl tomorrow. We're getting that head. No more waiting. I'm tired of being, playing second fiddle to all these bigger villains. Shocker then confronts Fred afterwards, one-on-one. And he says, hey, I know about the whole chameleon thing. And Fred's like, oh, geez, guys, I just wanted to impress you. It's a touching moment. They've been through a lot together. I'm glad we're on the same team, Shocker, he says. And it is kind of true. They share a hug. And he's like, they have been on a bunch of teams together throughout the years. The Sinister Syndicate, what did they run down?
They've been Spider-Man villains for 50 years almost at this point.
Exactly. And Shocker's like, but what did he say about like running out of time or something? And he was like, oh yeah, because I hired him to come like make me look good in front of y'all. And he's like, oh, okay, I see. Fred then goes to the bar, asks the bartender on a date to a baseball game. And he's like, yeah, that's what I needed, just this extra little human touch. I got a new life starting tomorrow. Everything's looking up. And we see him push his car into the river. And we see a little cross section with Shocker tied up in the trunk, which is not what I expected to see there at all.
It's a good little image. Now that Chris is saying like this is very much a Hawkeye like cut insert kind of design, but because I was like, why is he pushing his car? Oh, okay. And I like that. I do like that though. Mm-hmm. I think that it's juxtaposed nice with the nice scene with the Shocker. I do feel like at this point, like Boomerang isn't entirely honest. Despite being the narrator, he's not entirely honest with the audience about what his plans are. He's often got secondary plans that he's not telling the audience about, which is frustrating when he's your narrator. But
yeah. And there are parts where I wish it had been more clear early on, but I do overall kind of like it because he's an asshole. He's a villain. He's a straight up villain, and that's okay.
Well, yeah, because he's painting himself as like this. You're expecting like, oh, this is going to be the kind of like ne'er-do-well guy who always gets his lumps. And then he's going to improve and become a good guy. And I'm like, no, he's an absolute asshole and murderer and will sell his friends out like at any point. Which, like, now that I'm saying it loud, like, that's cool and novel. But at the time, I'm like, this is not what I'm usually used to. So it's kind of weird.
Yeah, I think it's good because, they don't... To end the issue like a page earlier with like getting a date or whatever, it would make you think like maybe he is starting to change or whatever. And you're like, no, he's clearly not. This is all part of his stupid scheme. He lied to the Shocker and said they were friends so that he could like knock him out and like he'd try to kill him off because he saw him talking to the chameleon or whatever, which is such a dumb thing to do.
Yep. So on to issue number 5 here. The owl is holding some guy hostage. And he says, oh, it's true. The owl eats rats, but I have to keep my rats fed too somehow. And he wants this guy to give him his money back. This money that he stole from the owl. This guy's like, oh, hey, listen, I don't have it anymore, but I can help you. I can point out the weak spots in your books, and you can like use that and carry it over to your clients and make more money with it. And Owl's like, let me tell you a story. It's a weird story about how they were trying to get back at some guy, and so they were gonna like film Man Bull going after his wife, and it was like set up a camera in the apartment. It's like, all right, you got to trust us, or we're gonna, rough up your wife or whatever. But Man Bull is too suave, and they turn on the camera, and Man Bull is fucking this guy's wife. And he says, "Listen,
he's not going to give info in under that case." So
right, listen to you. You ever want to get some guy on your side? Don't show him a video of a bull fucking his wife, which doesn't feel super applicable, but I get it. Don't point out my ears. I don't know. Then he dumps rats on the guy and he leaves.
Was there supposed to be a moral to that? I thought it was just like an edgy thing that he says and then kills him.
I guess so. I don't know.
I don't know.
I was looking for a connection there. Like, okay, telling me I have holes in my books is the equivalent of, I don't know. Then he dumps rats on the guy and leaves. Al says he's starving, and the next page is a giant splash page of him munching on a rat. I don't know why this needed a full page.
The owl also doesn't have like the big like spiky hair, like Wolverine hair, but even spikier than I'm used to.
Yeah, he should.
Yeah, he could. I don't think he has to. But it is a better look.
He's got the more jowly beard, is what I'm usually used to seeing him see. Also, like his beard goes all across his cheek. Also, is usually what I'm used to.
It does. It is a nice jolly beard. He looks like he's successful. You know, he's taking care of himself.
This owl's lost a little bit of weight. He's less. I mean, he's still eating rats here. So
still eating rats. Yeah.
He looks a little bit too much like a Venture Brothers character in this version.
You think so?
Yeah, it's just something about him, like, because he still has like these big eyebrows and everything, so he looks like he could, like, Brock Sampson could run in and punch him at any moment.
He looks a little like Dr. Quest from Johnny Quest.
You know, I think Philip Seymour Hoffman would have made a great owl.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. He would have made a great penguin too.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
All right. Anyways, we're on to the crew is staking out the owl's place now. They're on a roof. Speed Demon has a broken ankle from Luke Cage and Iron Fist, but it's okay. He duct taped it up. He's got a rollerblade on that foot. He's totally fine. The Beetle shows up with a big portfolio of information for everyone. She's printed out maps, individualized assignments. There's a glossary in the back. It's all color coded. There's a mission statement at the beginning. For some reason, this was just my favorite gag of the whole book. It rang true for me. But Beetle hates it. He knocks it off the roof, says he's in charge. She doesn't have faith in his plan. Neither does the Shocker, or else he'd be here. And Boomerang's like, Shocker was always a coward. Doesn't matter. So they move in. Speed Demon takes out the thugs, but he's kind of slipping and falling everywhere. Very slapstick, and I loved it. We see Overdrive's power, which is he can do remote control cars or something. And he's got a big giant helicopter that crashes into the building. And that's the only time Overdrive does anything.
So I was reading, he apparently, like I said, he's a Dan Slott Spider-Man. He worked with Mr. Negative to like make evil cars or vehicles or something. I'm like, okay, sure.
He definitely infiltrates the way I play like Far Cry, where I like send a helicopter like at a building and then just jump out, and then while the bad guy's like, what the fuck is that? Then I go infiltrate. Like that's pretty much my Far Cry method. So
wow, and you just told everybody your strategy on the internet.
Far Cry's single player. No one's gonna fuck unless we've got
all the goons who listen.
Yeah, a significant portion of our listenership is Far Cry NPCs. That's correct.
Yep. Wait, NPCs? Oh yeah, I get the joke. I get the
goons, that are just out there, like listening to something.
Yep. We should see if the next Far Cry, if they'll put our podcast in there as like like on the radio or something.
Oh, like when like in Metal Gear Solid 5 when you can like roll up with playing like 80s tunes instead of playing our podcast. That'd be pretty cool.
Exactly.
Yes, it would be.
This is where we should probably announce that we're part of GTA 6. We're not part of GTA 6. If we were one of the radio stations, that'd be cool.
Yeah. So this helicopter crashes in the building. The crew moves down there to go in. Boomerang is having trouble remembering which way to go, so Beetle hands him a map, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this way."
They're probably going to have like a podcast station, but they're all going to be like adult parodies. So instead of cereal, it's going to be, I don't know, something gross.
Like oatmeal?
No, something like adult and gross.
Yeah, I see. Yes. We get a nice little cross section of the Owl's building here, showing us everyone they have to fight. There's werewolves and scorpions and ninjas and a lemur and the head of Silvermane, and a big elevator that doesn't work, so they can't go down it, so they have to battle through everybody. And Fred is thinking, you know what, this is a good crew. You know what, we this is your quote, Vince. We deserve to be the Sinister Six, even if the math is wrong. And he, as they all go down fighting through the waves and waves of enemies, he's like, oh wait, the elevator is working, and he very peacefully takes it down while we see the rest of the crew facing unspeakable horrors. It's very nice.
But this is a lie, because he knew that the elevator worked the whole time, which we'll find out next issue. Like all this narration is fucking lying to us.
Yeah, he's a real scumbag.
Yep. Owl is seeing all this on the cameras, and he is very angry. He says, "Get my Prius ready." And he says, "Put a call to our friend in Denver. Tell him I have a job for him." And they get in the car, and he goes, "Oh, listen to this car. You can barely hear the engine. I love the Prius." I got a kick out of that line.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Boomerang gets to the room he's looking for, and there is no head of Silvermane. Instead, it's a painting of Doctor Doom and his true face. We don't see the face because it's being covered up by Boomerang's hand. But is that the room they were supposed to find? Then at the end of this issue, we see Boomerang's car, I guess, has been dragged out of the river. It's getting towed onto this lot, and the Shocker bursts out of the back. The lot owner's son finds him and is saying, "Hey, mister, are you okay?" And he's like, "Oh, he's a little beaten up." And then out of the corner of his eye, he sees that little RC car with Silvermane's head on top. And Shocker's a little dumbfounded, but he's like, and he grabs it and he starts running. And you know what? Nice little cliffhanger. I like that one.
Yeah, that's a good reveal too. Like
a very good
one, because it's a fucking stupid image of the little RC car. It looks like the Halo green warthog with a little head on top of it. It's as big as the car.
And he's kind of like trying to be a dude in the shadows, a little car, a head in the shadows, like kind of there, just like slowly hanging out by the corner of the building. Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah, and then we don't see the in between, just straight cut to Shocker like running away, holding the head.
Yep. But that's that issue. On to our last issue here, number 6. Fred is now on a date with this bartender. He's wearing a funny nose and glasses because I guess he doesn't want to be recognized at the baseball game.
Because he's banned from baseball.
Banned from baseball.
Banned from attending games.
Yep. And they are having a good time. They stuff their faces. They make out a little bit on the kiss cam. They fight. The kiss cam catches all of this.
I was gonna say, did that really happen, or was that his dream?
I think it did happen because they seem like they both have they both have a lot of fire in them, you know?
Yeah, because then later he says he hates whatever pitcher, and then she's like, "I hate that guy too," and then that's how they
all of a sudden they're in love.
Yeah.
Yep. I think the makeout earlier was probably just drunken baseball makeout, you know, not real actual bonding makeout.
He also brought a bunch of beer and hot dogs into the stadium
in his pocket.
Because is it City? Where did the Mets play? Like City something field?
City Field.
City Field. Yeah,
even I know that one. Come on.
That one's expensive, right? That's what
they're all expensive.
It's a baseball stadium.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah, it's a Tim Robinson move to just pull a hot dog out of your sleeve.
Yeah.
You can't skip lunch.
It is a little bit of a running gag too with the price of beers. As a bartender, he was like, "You're the one who's robbing me." He's like, "This place is even more expensive than your bar." Then after they have this bonding hatred over this pitcher or whoever it is, all of a sudden they realize they're in love. He's got visions of a supervillain wedding with that hippo in the background. There's dead Avengers with them sitting there on rocking chairs. I think they had a baby and this baby's on fire. I don't know. But the date ends. There's a nice vulnerable moment about how he does miss baseball, but it does not get him upstairs. He still thinks it went pretty well. He's on cloud 9 because he is rich with this true face of Doom, which is valued at $300 million. And he gives the story of how this thing got made, about how this up-and-coming hotshot artist named Bruder was hired by Doom. And he said, Chris's quote, "I want you to draw Doom like one of your French girls." And Doom got drunk and showed his face and some vulnerability. Saw the painting in the morning and zapped Bruder to dust with a death ray. Couldn't bring himself to destroy the painting and locked it away in his dungeon. It was liberated by thieves during the Christoph regime. Friend of the show, Christoph. What's up, Christoph?
I've never heard of Christoph up until 3 or 4 months ago when we covered that. When Chris, you gave us.
Now he's everywhere.
Christoph is everywhere. He's everywhere. He's so hot right now. From
and then he says, "You're probably wondering about the Silvermane head thing. It's not a real thing. Just an elaborate story for the chameleon. He knew he'd like the thought of it. Why didn't I tell my partners? Because I didn't want to split the money from the painting. This is the sinister, singular individual now."
Chris, question: has Doctor Doom's face really never been shown to like comic readers?
I don't. I mean, there's been a few like cheats where it has, like in Secret War or something. He's like, "Oh, I wish my face was fixed."
Okay.
But I don't think we've seen like sometimes we see it. It looks like we see the outline and it's all scarred up.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like there's barely anything, and it just seems like he's very vain. So I don't know that there's like a definitive answer as far as what his face looks like.
Interesting. I just would have figured like in all these years they would have shown it once.
Hold on now. I did a quick little search here. Apparently in Avengers number 53 last year,
Oh wow!
we get the face of Doom from an alternate universe. But
Yeah,
that doesn't count.
That's happened.
All right. Never mind. So
that's the one thing they'll hold on to. The Marvel.
Yep.
Uncle Ben can come back from the dead.
Uncle Ben
Gwen Stacy
dead.
come back from the dead.
You can't put that genie back in a bottle ever. Then we see the rest of the crew, the Sinister Three at this point. Overdrive, Beetle, and Speed Demon are tied up. They're talking to the Owl and a couple of his goons. Overdrive has very loose lips. I would say this is where we get the most characterization out of Overdrive, where he is probably too young to be a supervillain and in over his head and just like happy to say yes to anybody. Speed Demon, I do like that Beetle is like actually trying to like, talk tough, has a plan. She's got her phone on her behind her, like calling somebody or texting somebody. Speed Demon is just thinking about the dog. That's the only thing on his mind. Great. Mach 7 is at Fred's door, and Fred's like, oh shit, he's got to hide all the paint. He's like, hide the painting, cover up these boxes that are labeled like, loot or whatever. And Mach 7 comes in, and he's like, hey, my cop friend said somebody with explosive boomerangs busted that crew out of jail right after Fred ratted them out. Fred's like, oh my God, there has to be a new boomerang out there. I'm going to help you find him. All that.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah. And Mach
he's like, it could be anyone.
And Mach 7's like, is there a reason you have a poster of The Ugly Truth on your wall? It's like, I just really like Katherine Heigl. Abe is not buying it. So he tries to give a good line and fly out the window, but his wings are too big for it. He can't make a good exit, so he goes out the door.
That's a very good bit, too.
Yeah. After he leaves, the Chameleon shows up with a thug that punches him out. Great. Chameleon's here again. Owl hears Beetle's phone when she gets a text. The text says just to outside. And Owl's like, oh my God, I'm tired of these games. Where is my painting? And Beetle's like, wait, painting? What? Then Tombstone shows up and explodes a wall. Tombstone is here. Tombstone is Beetle's dad. What? Cool little reveal. That's the cliffhanger there for the end of the 6th issue, end of the 1st volume. That's it. That's where we're stopping.
What a cliffhanger.
I really wanted more out of it. I wanted more out of this. I'm jumping to my final thoughts because I think I ended up being the most positive on this book, but it's like the only one that I think I'm going to actually keep reading to finish. It was only 17 issues, right? I'm going to finish this. I loved it. Anything that focuses on D-list villains, I'm like, for whatever reason, that just entertains me. Maybe that's part of why I love Thunderbolt so much. But like anything we've read that just finds a way to go back and all their shitty little stories of like, I hop up in this comic and then that comic. And when you think of them all together, you're like, wait a minute, what is this person's life? And just finding a way to string them together is beautiful. Mm-hmm. And I have a good time every time. So that's my final thoughts. What did y'all think? What did you think, Vince?
So we've read a few of these like D-list villains like teaming up. Like we read like MODOK's 11. Comes to mind. This is much better than MODOK's 11. I feel like to Chris's point, like this is the Boomerang show. This is not really about the team, and the fact that Spider-Man is in the title doesn't fucking matter at all. But like, so it's a mistitled book, but also I wouldn't buy a book called Boomerang. So here we are, right? But like Boomerang is really well developed. Like, despite me saying like he lies to the audience, yes. But like he's got schemes on schemes. Like he's got a pretty rich back history that they strung together through just like bullshit. To your point, Kia, like this person's life is wild, and he's had like a lot of, and he's been around. So I think it's like really well done. It has a lot of my like favorite like mafia like Spider-Man, Daredevil villains here. Like, I like Tombstone, I like Silvermane, I like the Punisher, I like all of these characters. So, and the Owl, I like him too. So like seeing them all in like a different context, a little goofier context, it is fun. I was expecting the book to be a little funnier. I was expecting it to be more of a team book. I was expecting Spider-Man to be in it more, just based on the title. None of that really happened, but it is pleasant. I wouldn't say it's like a great book. It really hasn't changed my opinion of Nick Spencer at all. But it is only 17 issues. I'm assuming Secret Wars probably kills it. But it's good enough. I might go back and read The Amazing Spider-Man where I stopped and see Boomerang through there. Apparently he becomes a roommate with Peter Parker because he knows Peter Parker is close to Spider-Man, and that's his scheme, which I like. So
a good scheme. Chris, how about you?
Yeah, I liked it. I didn't, from what I was saying, you might think that I didn't like it because I've nitpicked some plot stuff that I don't think made sense and some jokes that landed with a thud. But there were funny jokes. So overall, yeah, I enjoyed it. I agree with what you were saying, Kia. It is just like, and I appreciate that it's not a guy who is, I mean, he is delusional, but he is very specifically like, he thinks he's a step ahead of everyone when he's like half a step ahead of everyone, and it's a fun character. It does get dangerously close to one of my least favorite movies of all time, Lucky Number 11. But as long as they don't reference that movie and actually say like, oh, it's just like that movie, Lucky Number 11, then I guess I'll let it slide. It could just be a coincidence that it's very similar. But yeah, it was funny, and it was good to see. I mean, I liked. I don't know if we would ever do it because I don't know, but the Irredeemable Ant-Man. It had similar vibes of that, of just like, this is a protagonist who is just like the worst. Every choice he makes is wrong. Everything he does is wrong. And you still are kind of like, well, maybe he'll turn it around, and then he doesn't ever.
I think we read the
first
Ant-Man.
issue of it. We read the first because our podcast is basically 3 Ant-Man movies old. It was one of the first like 10 episodes, and we did like, I want to say like Hank Pym's first issue.
Did all 3 Ant-Man.
Yeah, Scott Lang's first issue and Irredeemable Ant-Man 1. And I remember liking Irredeemable Ant-Man a lot. And then I was like, this is a little rough when I read it like 10 years later. I think because he actually tries to like redeem himself and become a hero. And maybe that's where it goes wrong.
Yeah. And I mean, I remember the scene that it gets shared on the internet all the time where he's just peeping on Ms. Marvel. That's just like, that's. I'm glad that this book doesn't go there. Like they do make some off-color jokes, but there aren't any like crimes like that where I was like, well, I don't like this.
There's no sexual assault crimes of him just being like, oh, he's just a rapscallion. The way that Irredeemable Ant-Man was, where he was like, what? He would sit like on a stoop and be like, what hot woman's purse can I jump into so I can see them shower? That's what that Ant-Man did. And we're like,
yes.
Yeah.
Anyways, how do we get on that? All right.
So that's our scale. Like, it's off color, but not
similar,
like that.
This is similar in tone to that, but I think it's better than that.
Yeah. And again, like those plot issues that Chris mentioned, I think they're pretty big plot issues. I had a rough time with the first couple of issues of this, and I think it really picks up after that. So again, I think story getting going. I'm really curious to see what happens after this. So I'm gonna keep going.
And I do think like the peak is like the idea of like the criminals, like legends and stories, like those sequences really pop for me.
They're really great. But we are moving on to Earth X number 6 here. Not a lot has happened so far. We're in the future. X-51 and Uatu are talking a lot, and we've met a lot of people. And not a lot has happened. But the X-Men are on this cover. I think they're the X-Men. I like this Chewbacca-looking dude. Who is that guy? Did we learn his name?
He shows up, though.
It's Chewbacca. That's his name. We'll talk more about him in a second, but this text at the beginning of the book, we've got X-51 and Uatu talking to each other. X-51 is like, hey, do you think Reed's going to use that time machine to like turn back time and fix everything? And he's like, why? Are you worried about something, X-51? He's like, well, I'm just kind of wondering, like, am I going to get my face back? Are you going to get your sight back? He goes, no, we're Watchers now. We're beyond time manipulations, so nothing's going to change for us. Which, is that a thing with the Watcher? He can see, like, as other timelines have happened, he's, like, seen them, and
He's always
aware.
going forward, too? Like, nobody can undo the Watcher's past, but other pasts can be undone?
That's also just how time travel in the Marvel Universe usually works. Is it's kind of, you create alternate universes. You can't change the thing you're in.
I guess that's
true. It's not Back to the
True.
Future. As they make pains to point out in the movies, it's not Back to the Future rules.
But Uatu was like, I don't even think he will. His discoveries in general have made him too fearful of, like, kind of messing things up. But then they jump to a history of the X-Men. We start with Magneto and Charles, get to some Scott and Jean, and how they're a greater threat to humanity than Charles and Magneto combined.
We're
gonna have kids.
Yeah.
I was so bored by this.
It was not. These history parts are terrible.
It's so dumb too. X-51, or was it? I forget who's talking to who, but they're like, "Why would he call himself evil?" It's like, because that way he would manipulate Professor X into being good and show that he's actually a bigot. And you're like, shut up.
Defeat him with morality. Work? It was a strange little. It felt retconny, of like, stupid. If he's so good, if he's so righteous, why'd he call this group the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants? Whatever. But
would have been a better line with like, "Look, man, I'm just watching. I don't know."
That would have been better.
So anything would have been better. Yeah, anything with that. So back to the actual book here. Reed Richards has teleported to the remains of the Xavier School. He sees the X-Men fighting Sentinels there, and he goes, wait a minute. Oh, I see it. I triggered the danger room. Okay, it's fine. He finds Cerebro and puts it on because he's going to find the Inhumans. Then, meanwhile, Cyclops is being followed by somebody who attacks him. It's some lady who kind of has a big Green Lantern-looking snake that goes after him. Apparently, her name is Charmer because her teammates come out, and it's like, oh my god, he took out Charmer. Takes her out with an optic blast, and apparently this is Daredevil's circus troupe, and they are trying to attack Cyclops. They're not doing a great job of it. They're trying to attack as a team, but they're uncoordinated. The Chewbacca-looking guy is like, "Hey, Tower, attack," or whatever. And Tower's like, "I'm not sure I want to. I'm not sure we should." He's like, "What?" He's like, "Can't we just tell him that we're the new X-Men and that Captain America sent us for training?" And they're like, "What? Why didn't y'all just start with that?" He's like, "Well, Cap said that it was to show you how well we already fight," and I really like that.
So
funny.
When did that happen? When did Captain America recruit these guys? Did we read that?
So last issue, Daredevil was like, "I want to be your partner," and so I guess in between issues, he's like, "Oh, I have these 5 guys too."
Look, Vince, this book just moves too fast to show us that scene. Okay, they had to do it in between.
Was there a spinoff? No, like that. No. That's more interesting to me. Maybe with a table set them things.
Yes.
It is more interesting than Reed looking through the empty X Mansion.
Yeah, or the 3 pages of bullshit X Origins that is wrong, but sure. And spoiler alert, when you have aged up Cyclops and Daredevil mentioned in the same page, I don't know which one is which because they're just old men with fucking red sunglasses. I don't know which one is which.
We do know in this version because Daredevil isn't an old man with sunglasses. He's a weird carnival guy.
I thought is this Dark Devil or is that MC2? Was that Spider Girl?
That was Spider Girl.
Okay, cool.
Dark Devil was Spider Girl, but Daredevil in this universe is a devil man. He sort of is like a Super Dave or other sort of stunt man.
Super Dave is our point of reference.
That's the most current stuntman I can think of.
Evil Knievel, R.I.P. Super Dave. I
do really like this scene though.
Well,
it's one of the better scenes in the book thus far.
I just wanted to see more of it. I'm like,
every time it's introducing new characters. Like again, they have a scene with we were just talking about her with May Parker. And it's like, she's so much more interesting than telling me about the damn X-Men from 70 years ago or whatever.
Yes. But let's keep going here. Hulk and Bruce, who are currently separated, not like physically separated in separate bodies here. Little kid Bruce Banner and big ape-like Hulk. They're talking with Clea, who is the sorceress supreme here. She's going to send them into the realm of death to talk to Marvel, Captain Marvel.
She's got some Angelina Jolie eyes, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. She's got to only send one of them in. Like, who's gonna go in there and risk their soul? And they're gonna send the Hulk in because he doesn't have a soul. Bruce is his soul. They're connected, but the soul will stay outside. Hulk will go in.
I like this.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with Bruce's logic, but sure, go for it, dude.
You can't snatch the soul if the soul's not in hell too.
Yeah.
But
It's a technicality.
why does he think that he has the soul? I don't know, Bruce. Have you read any of your Hulk comics? Bruce is kind of a piece of shit.
But also Hulk can't speak, so Bruce wrote a big old note in a very nice scroll that that Hulk is going to be carrying. Meanwhile, the Iron Avengers are sanitizing, and while Norman is talking to Tony Stark on the monitors, and he's saying there will be no mishaps, and Tony's like, yes, sir, I understand the need for secrecy. Whatever they're talking about, Vision is not happy that Tony is working with Norman Osborn. Tony's like, hey, I'm doing more with my inventions to help humanity now than I ever did as Iron Man. And Vision's like, no, humanity needs you out there, but you can't see that, kind of trapped inside your armor here.
And also Tony's going a little like, I need a world without government legislation. I need freedom from that. And I'm like, Tony.
Shut up.
You have no idea.
I can't innovate.
Without these pesky, I can't help people. I can't give people robots in their brains without some type of like testing or regulations or holding me accountable if things go wrong. Ugh, it's so bullshit. Yep. I also don't like that like Tony and Reed look the exact same. Just like
they both have
very similar. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I understand they've aged, but you don't have to grow a big homeless man beard just because you're old.
Well,
like,
one of them can, but
they
not
are
all
both
of them.
reclusive. They're both reclusive shut-ins. I feel like the beard fits them both pretty well.
I guess, but it's stupid that Tony is like Tony is talking to the president and he has a crazy man beard. Like,
sure.
his character is that he's basically like in with the higher ups in the government or whatever, he should be like an older government guy and not a crazy recluse. That should be Reed. But anyway, regardless, this book is very sloppy and has too many characters because they're trying to tie all the Marvel Universe stuff together.
Yep. So back with Cyclops, he has given the team some new costumes. I don't know how he got these costumes made so quickly, but they are classic, nostalgic versions of their old costumes with the original X's on them.
Especially for the Chewbacca and the very tall guy, Tower or whatever. It's like those guys got to have special molecules.
There's a two-headed dude on the cover, too. Did we even see him in the book?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, he's on that page with the costumes. He's on the far right.
Chewbacca looks great, though, man. I don't know his name. I'm calling him Chewbacca. It looks like Chewbacca, but like living in a modern world where he's a little bit slimmer. He's got some hair care products that he's using. He looks good. He looks real good.
I do they're like, what do we call you? It's like, for some reason, he can't be like Cyclops. He's like, call me Mr. S?
Yeah, he's like, never. They're like, hey, should we call you Professor? He goes, no, never Professor. Mr. S. All right.
Mr. S.
That's definitely what I thought of.
I thought of that too, yeah. It's Mr. F, right?
Right, Mr. F from Arrested Development.
Which Super Dave Osborne was on. He was the surrogate.
Yeah.
That all comes
because he's Albert Brooks' brother in real life.
Yep, he was.
R.I.P. Super Dave.
So then we get a scene with Peter Parker climbing up a building to talk to his daughter Mayday, friend of the show. Some great power, blah blah blah. May's like,
and even she's like, blah blah blah. I don't give a shit, Dad.
And she goes, Dad, you don't get it. I'm not gonna like ignore a criminal like you did and then regret it forever. I'm just not gonna mess up like that. And I'm like, you know what? That's a great point, actually. Like your dad.
I don't need a canon event.
Like, Dad, like you went through this and you taught me this lesson forever. Like I know it. Thank you. Yeah, I love a nice scene, even though it accomplished very little.
It is so funny because it's just like the nature of comic books is Peter repeats himself like 1,000 times to say with great power, blah, blah, blah. But it's like May is like, yes, I grew up in your house. You say this all the time.
Good. It's good. Then we get Captain America and Daredevil. They're on a train following the Red Skull's forces, who are like flying through the air, and they don't know that Captain America and Daredevil are like right there, or they don't care. I don't know. And this scene is mostly just X-51 and Uatu talking over it, though. X-51 is like, "Hey, I'm surprised the Skull's forces have grown so much." And Uatu says, "Of course. If you're not surprised, did you know what he's going to do?" Yeah, he's part of the plan, part of the original design. X-51 is just confused. The plan? What are you talking about? And he keeps talking more. And Uatu at this point is fed up. He says, "This book is filled with great Uatu quotes. I think just him being an asshole." He says, "X-51, you are a fool. I want you to delete your personality circuits from your system." But nope, delete them now. I've been more than patient. All right. And then Cap asks why Daredevil wanted to join him, and he says because Cap's going to lose. Daredevil's sure of it, which I feel like is just a repeat of the last cliffhanger and exactly how it went, where he's like, "Yeah, that's why I want to join you."
Yeah, all your partners die.
Yeah.
Sounds cool.
But that's our little cliffhanger. We get that more of that after text stuff with some info about other mutants. Magneto is mayor of Sentinel City. Multiple Man lives in every city on Earth at once, like a street informer.
Every city on Earth.
Every.
What's his like cap for like? Is it 20,000, 50,000?
Well, originally he used to have a pretty small cap. Like he couldn't do it too long, but everyone in the world has changed. Maybe. And everyone has changed according to their names. So now he's like way multiple names.
Right. I'm thinking more like, does he go to like cities with like less than 100, towns with less than 100 people?
Oh,
like
what's
that
his cap for population?
Yeah. Like where does he do? And does he give like more representation to like larger cities? Like,
is there like a Manhattan and a Brooklyn, multiple
I
man?
think, probably. I mean, I think bigger cities, yeah, he might need more. But I don't think there's many big cities left in this world,
Is it just like it's like Judge Dredd, like Mega City 1?
I think that's probably it.
That'd be way easier. I would be a multiple man in Mega City 1. It's just me. I do like that, like Dazzler's still just touring.
I do like that X-51's like kind of sad. I'm like, yeah, it sounds sad. You're just doing like, this is a post-apocalyptic crazy future, and you're like, hey everybody, remember disco?
But my favorite thing is at the very, very end, he's like, all right, X-51, time to delete your personality. And he's like, Uatu, I have a bad feeling about this. And Uatu says, it'll be the last bad feeling you will ever have. I thought that was a nice line.
I feel like Uatu's not on the up and up.
Something feels off here. I don't remember anything about this, but still nothing happened really. But I'm most excited about this personality deleting thing and how it's going to come into play.
Well, you're in luck because Hulk's on the cover.
Hulk's on the cover?
For next issue.
Let's take a look. Hey, it looks pretty good. I do like that beastly looking Hulk there.
With a diaper.
With a diaper. It's a very white diaper. But that's it. I feel like there's not a whole lot else to say. Said it as we went here. But
the history lessons are getting really bad. Like they gotta stop.
They gotta stop. We're halfway through. Are they gonna continue into the next book?
It also makes me wonder, because I feel like the X-Men one is wrong, and I feel like maybe the Inhuman ones, which I don't know as well, are probably also wrong.
Well, it's like a twist on like what the status quo was in the 90s, but yeah, even then you're just like, what? I did not understand the point they were trying to make in this one at all. It was because they're like, oh, the mutants were spreading and blah blah blah, and it was this problem, and I was like,
now the mutants can have children. That's why Jean Grey and Cyclops are such a big problem. Like, the next evolution of humanity. What the fuck did you think was going to happen? I don't know.
Yeah, but it's gonna tie into obviously the reveal that we haven't gotten to yet, but it's been foreshadowed so damn much. I feel like you and Key, I'm sure when you first read this, you didn't see it coming, but it's like right now it's hard not to see the Inhuman twist coming. That like reads like, I have to find the Inhumans. Oh, everyone in the world has powers. What's going on?
Oh, you're okay. I think I know what you're saying. That like everyone's an Inhuman now. Is that it?
Basically.
Okay.
Yeah, and that the Inhumans have a secret that they couldn't tell Reed. And yeah, it's like that seems pretty obvious what happened here. That everybody on the planet got exposed to the whatever that makes Inhumans.
Terrigen mists.
Yes. Which is kind of what happened in like Ms. Marvel and all of that, right? When they were trying to get rid of mutants and making new characters in humans.
Yes, that's accurate.
So I guess that's where they got that idea from.
I guess it was a less of a global scale, though, right? Or was it?
It wasn't the whole planet. Yeah, it wasn't like that. But it was, it wasn't supposed to just happen to random New Yorkers. They weren't supposed to get exposed to these mists that give you superpowers.
Yeah. But that's Earth X for this time here. I think that's enough of talking about that. Next time, of course, we're on to number 7. We're not giving up on the book. We didn't actually discuss it, but we didn't plan for anything else. So I assume we're going on with it. We're halfway through. And for our main read, we're doing some actual Spider-Man. We were sad, not enough Spider-Man in these books. We need some real Spider-Man.
But let's keep the owl.
Ooh, we're keeping the owl in. We're reading the Owl Octopus War from Spectacular Spider-Man number 73 through 79 from 1982, written by Bill Mantlo, art by Roger Stern. And this is a war between the owl and the octopus? I don't know the octopus.
Dr. Octopus.
Oh yeah, I know Dr. Octopus. Look, hey, call him a doctor. He's earned it. If you're not going to call him a doctor, I assume it's somebody else.
Dr. Octopus. This is the superior Spider-Man. So yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know if I don't know. Kia, let us know whether or not he the superior foes of Spider-Man calls it like the Owl Octopus War 2 at the end, like the Owl teams up. Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
If Owl joins the Resistance, I bet not.
Look, I said I'm going to keep reading. It's going to take me 2 years, though. I'll report back then.
I'm excited for this, though, Chris. You always like the Roger Stern era. I guess he's just on art, not on writing at this point.
I don't think I would think he would be the editor if he's anything. I don't know that he's the artist on this.
Yeah, but I mean, it looks good to me. It's going to be our little post-Christmas episode. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it's a fun era of Spider-Man. This is when he's like seriously dating the Black Cat, but she doesn't know who he is.
Ooh, that could be fun too.
Great. Well, what else is
issue 7? It's Spectacular Spider-Man issue 73 to 79.
Chris, what else is going on with you? How is the Your Stupid Minds podcast doing?
Your Stupid Minds is doing great. We just had an episode that is already out about Assassin's Creed, which is a lot of fun to talk about. Very silly movie that is sort of based on the games, but it creates a new character and has them in 15th century Spain for some reason. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to joke about this video game logic in a movie that Nick had no idea what the game was, or was really trying to piece together, like, is this in the game? Versus completely original things that the movie made up. So that was a lot of fun. And then I guess coming the week or a few days after this episode, we will have a Christmas episode. We always do Hallmark, Lifetime, Netflix style Christmas movies. So I don't know that I can reveal what it is yet, but it will be some sort of Christmas movie coming soon.
Exciting. I saw an ad for, what's it called? Jingle Bell Lane or something like that, a movie where Eddie Murphy is
Candy Cane Lane.
Candy Cane Lane. It's been advertised on my TV like crazy with all these Christmas movies. I'm not going to watch it, but that might be a bad one. I'm just trying to stay on topic here. Vince, what's going on with you?
Not much. I beat the new Yakuza game Like a Dragon, the Man Who Erased His Name. It's really good. Not my game of the year, but really fun. And now I'm about halfway through Super Mario RPG on the Switch, which was my favorite game back when I was 11. It's still pretty good now.
I'm sad they changed Frog Fuchsia's name.
Yeah, to the Frog Sage.
Oh, wow.
How would you do that?
There's a few things. They also changed Mac the Knife to Clay Morton. And so my son was telling me about
That's a good change.
My son was telling me about like he beat Clay Morton. I'm like, I don't know who the hell you're talking about. I haven't gotten to the Power Ranger villains yet, though. I'm excited for those guys.
Just very quickly, my game of the year, Baldur's Gate 3. I won the game award for game of the year, so I'm not making a daring new proclamation. But man, that game was good. Man.
Yeah, mine's Mortal Kombat 1 is my game of the year. I love that game. It's so good.
Do I have a game of the year? Probably played the most Brotato, to be honest. I like that game a lot. The Vampire Survivor. Brotato, I'm sorry.
You say Brotato, I say Brotato.
It's a good Vampire Survivor style game if you like that. Yeah, that's all I got. I'm sure I've played other. I'll report back at Christmas at the proper end of the year to let y'all know what the real best game of the year is. It's probably going to be Elden Ring again.
I think that's how it works.
That's how it works for me.
Little Shop of Horrors is still the best movie of the year, 29 years running. But there we go.
I don't think that's true either. I might actually go with Bloodborne if we're doing that. But I think that's it for now, everybody. Thank you for listening. Vince, I love you.
Love you too, bud.
Chris, I love you.
I love the singular individual.
Wow. Sinister. And listener, we love you. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.